Hello and welcome back to the Midlands Rugby Podcast. Phil, we'll start with you. How you doing?
I'm good, mate. Good, thank you. Yeah, bit of a new location tonight because I've pissed up the bedding, but I haven't pissed on the bedding. I've just like to.
Yeah.
I've messed up for cleaning the bedding that my daughter pissed on instead.
Always blame the kids, and we're joined by Coach Oundle JP. JP, how you doing?
Very good, my friend. Very good. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thank you very much for joining us. I know it was a little bit last minute, but that's just kind of how we do.
You went through your big contact list and went, who the hell can we get? We're dead short. Who likes his own sound of his own voice? Oh, I know.
Well, actually, your pal Grant Snelling was slightly higher than you because I texted him first.
He was busy.
He was busy. JP, do you want to just give a little bit of an introduction to yourself, your career in rugby, and what you're doing now?
Oh, crikey. What I'm doing now is I'm in quite a lucky position. I do a bit of coaching here, there, and everywhere for Oundle School and a little bit of mentoring for some football lads, which is a bit of a strange one for Kettering Town FC. And I, do a bit of pieces at the club. So I'm the role is director of rugby at the club. I've stepped away from being sort of head coach, and I've got a friend that you'll know him as well. He's Foxy. Foxy's now head coach, along with a lad called Andy Key, who used to play for Leicester at fullback and Leeds Academy and coached me at Bedford. But my sort of rugby background is I'm a bit like Eggy, although he's moved away. I'm a Peterborough boy. I started playing rugby at Peterborough, and then I moved to Northampton, and I played a number of years at the Saints, and then went down the road to Bedford and couple of other clubs after that, so Old Albanians, back to Peterborough, and then I'm now at Oundle. So yeah, I've been around a bit.
Nice. Never left too far from Peterborough,
though. No. Hometown boy. I can't stray more than about 150 miles is about as far as I'll go.
Phil, did you ever cross over with JP at any point on the pitch?
Yeah, so we would have played each other quite a few times when JP was at Bedford.
Yeah.
There were some good games, actually. Those games, Nottingham Bedford used to be a pretty good game.
Good game, yeah.
Every game, I think. I don't think I've won that many times at Bedford, to be fair. But it's hard work running up the hill. So,
well, to be fair, when I went to Bedford, when I left the Saints in 2004, and basically there was just quite a few of the Saints boys came down the road, and we were pretty a gun team for the championship at that time. Really, to be fair, we weren't bad.
Yeah, no, it was. They still are, to be fair. Even in the league's changed a bit, but
well, I think when I joined, it was Rudy Straley was coaching, and then it was then Mickey Raya came in the next year after I joined. And for a lad who stayed there for so long, I mean, he's built a phenomenal culture, and he's still a hell of a bloke to talk to and chat to over a beer and stuff like that. And he's had some great, and they've got a style of play which has worked for him, and it stands him in good stead.
Yes, for anyone who doesn't know, that style of play is pretty loose, especially out in the backs.
Yeah.
There's a lot of chucking the ball around and giving it to really fast people.
Yeah, fuck those.
Good line option, solid line option.
Yeah. Give them the ball.
Give it to someone else. No, it's you spent time at Northampton, and you've gone to Bedford, and then you've stayed in the community game, which not a lot of people do after dropping out of professional rugby. Is there something that kind of kept bringing you back, or is it just?
I think. We were talking about it before we got going on the recording side of things. It's just I've been involved in and around rugby, and it's probably it's a really interesting thing to think about. Everybody talks about mental health and stuff like that within stuff, but for me, rugby's a bit of a release. And although I don't play as much now these days, I still need that. I do a bit of training and stuff like that, but I still need to be around the boys and that rugby environment and be able to chat to people. It's a big old issue, and I think, well, strange enough, I think Wally's on TV. Steve Thompson, Wally's on TV tonight doing the dementia thing, which is another big issue within it. I don't know. I think rugby's probably my security blanket.
Yeah.
Stops me arguing with the missus,
Seems to cause more arguments for me than reduce.
Well, yeah. It's yin and yang, that one, isn't it?
So your deal at Oundle. We'll touch on what's actually going on in rugby at the minute. So how's the season started?
But I know it's not the Path Pod anymore, but it's very similar to you boys, really. We're 5-1. We won the first. We came out the gates. We had a really good pre-season. Came out the gates really, really good. You know, and the big Bromsgrove, who were mid to high table last year, we were like, yeah, we're in a good place. And then it's just that consistency, you know, and consistency in terms of boys being available, and consistency in terms of our performance. It's a real tough ask, and you know, the level we're at, which is Midlands Prem, or it's now called Midlands One East. I can't remember what it's called now, but it's really interesting because you've got teams that are paying players and stuff like that, you know, and that adds a different dynamic to the community game, and people will see it whether it's a positive or negative. You know, it is what it is. I suppose football's gone down that route, but then obviously in the news you get teams like Worcester and Waspies, you know, in a bit of financial difficulty. It makes you think, well, is it the right move? You know, what are people's motivations for playing? For me, I just used to love playing rugby, and that's why I got involved in it. And then, you know, don't get me wrong, being paid to do it is bloody amazing. But you know, it's trying to work out at the community game level, certainly below the level you guys are at, and the level Oundle's playing at, is how that works. You know, it must be really, really difficult.
Yeah, I think there comes a point though where there's no money changing hands, it becomes a lot more simplistic. I think our seconds, and Tom's a big part of our second team up now in the league system. What is it? Level 8, Tom?
Well, level 9, I think.
Level 9.
Yeah.
And it is a simple community down there where lads rock up because they love the game. And simple, not just in terms of mental.
It's not some of the people have had to rock up against this season.
But I think that's massively important, and it's a really difficult thing for clubs to get right, to have especially we be careful really in terms of saying alcohol and stuff like that. But actually having a beer after the game and stuff like that, and being able to enjoy yourself is massively important. And I think the guys really enjoy that more than they actually enjoy the ones that are get paid. But I don't, you know, but it's hard to get that culture right and everything else right. And same with you guys, you've got a really, really strong second team. We're working hard on our second team this year. We've changed it to be an under-23 by name, which is a bit weird because obviously even I can play for an under-23 side because it's not name legit. But we're trying to encourage our Colts and some of the local youngsters to come and play and do stuff and hang around the club. You know, it's trying to get that right so we have a strong stock of players coming through.
There is generally, for me, nothing better than being in a clubhouse full of people just having a conversation after a rugby game. We were even a few weeks ago, our academy had a National Cup game, and just being in the clubhouse after that, not playing, it felt like there was 2 buzzing days in a row. It's just it's a completely different feel when the boys stick together.
Yeah, you know, and I think that's what, you know, all rugby players talk about something, but I think that's what everyone misses. It's just that camaraderie, but it's sitting in the changing room after a game or having a beer after the match and having a yarn. You know, I think it's hugely important. It's massive for the community game, and it's with the RFU how it supports the community game. It's a hard one for them to get right. I understand that, but I struggle with the amount of support they give, especially when you look at. I was talking to Phil about divisional stuff, so East Midlands, Warwickshire, NLD, all that sort of stuff. You know, how they support that sort of side of things, which for some of the young lads is the best level they'll play at. It becomes very difficult.
Yeah, I mean, just picking up on that, you're currently leading the Midlands under 18 setup, and you know, I think we were saying that there's no longer a sort of in England under 18s counties thing. You think that's going to drive lads away from even taking part in the county thing to begin with? Yeah,
I think it will. You know, for the lads who are, you know, you'll have a few lads who under 18s they can't play senior rugby, but we've got a few players that can. But they might be playing a decent level for their first team wherever. You know, their drive to then actually go to training and other bits and pieces, because as you know, having done the NLD stuff, there is a commitment to train and do stuff. And, you know, why would they then because obviously they've got to either drag their parents if they're not driving, or drive themselves and find the petrol money and stuff like that. It becomes really, really difficult. And then, you know, now the RFU doesn't support it. I think I remember when the reason why I went to Northampton was through East Midlands. It was, I think, we got paid expenses for petrol money, and you know, there was all sorts of things that were actually funded through the RFU. And nowadays, there's no budget for the divisions or the subdivisions or the counties.
Yeah, I think that's a real shame, and I think it does show sort of where the focus is going, and that is to the Premiership academies. And if you're not in a Premiership academy, you got to get yourself into the uni to get yourself playing Bucks Super League or whatever they call it now, and that's the only route in, really.
Yes, I mean, Bucks Super League is pretty decent, and academies are really interesting. They are, but they don't miss many players. You know, they really don't. But it is a brutal, cutthroat business, that is. And then it's like, how do they then? And when those kids who get finished maybe a senior academy and get out, how many of those lads stay in the game? That's the bit I'm interested. No, whatever level that means, you'd expect senior academy lads, they might be playing National 1, National 2, maybe even Champ. You know, but how those lads stay in the game and do stuff, I think that's key. Whether it's coaching or doing whatever.
Yeah, I think that's a key point, and it's something, you know. Now we're looking at sort of, I mean, Leeds still have their national academy or RFU funded academy, but they're now in Nat 1 or Nat 2. I don't know where they are now. You know, and Worcester could be going the same way. They've got a strong academy set up. They could be going the same way. Wasps, again, good academy set up, could be going the same way. So, you know, how long are the RFU going to fund that? Is it going to become more regionalised, which I think was originally the idea with the whole Leeds thing? And I know we're going to see something like that, but we don't want to keep it too long. So the next question was, being sort of an ex-professional man yourself and being in that arena, how scary is it to you of the fall down of Wasps and Worcester?
Massively scary, especially for like the interesting thing is obviously because it's all business reasons. And when you look at Worcester's really interesting because if you've been up to Worcester's ground, they've got a shitload of land around there. And it's probably prime development land, and it's split in terms of two companies. So one company owns and the other company actually owns the lads who are playing. So it's really interesting. Obviously, the legal law in terms of tax, and obviously, and I don't know, so I can't cast aspersion. There's some of those lads or those directors at that club. Pound to a pinch of shit, they've probably got some interests in some of that land and stuff like that. And you can't walk away from that. Have they gone into that and going, actually, I'll support them for 3-4 years, and then I'll. You hope not, and I'm sure there'll be more and more to come out of it, but.
It came out today that the guy who owned Worcester Boilers, who was like their original sponsor, wasn't he, and bought them up through.
Didn't they go for him for a loan or something, and they paid him a load of money? I don't know.
Yeah, so they bought him out in 2003 or 2007, and have kept it for that long through a few ownerships, but essentially the same group. And now, yeah, essentially a lot of the land has been hived up into the top co, which hasn't been gone into administration. It's the company below it that's gone into administration.
Yeah.
Or the two companies below gone into administration. So yeah, it'd be interesting. I think Wasp's already been in administration is a worry.
Wasp is slightly different, I think. I mean, I've spoken to the Waspy boys. I've gone through the county program and I've taught, and they seem fairly happy and stuff like that. I haven't spoken to them and stuff like that, but obviously they're now, because they're no longer in the RICO, where RICO they never had primacy of tenure.
Yeah.
So they didn't get any takings over for the beer or anything. You know, where they are now, they've got concerts going on and stuff like that, and they're raking that money back in. Yeah. So they're actually probably a much more viable option for somebody to come in and buy. I mean, ultimately at the moment, if you're looking at a Premiership club, it is a Premiership club a money-making exercise? No different to a Premiership football club. You're not going to make money.
No, I think Marinakis is finding that out for us at the moment.
Yeah.
But I think that it is an interesting one for me, because looking at the way some of the community game is going with the money and stuff, rugby has been painted with, and then with the superstars at the top. For me, rugby's been painted as a massive entertainment thing, which it is. All sport is going to be entertainment, but you can only buy a rugby club for the love rugby as opposed to wanting to make money. And I feel like there's quite a few, and we'll see it more and more and more as if wages continue to, well, as wages and personalities continue to grow, that will only happen more.
I remember when it went pro. I was working at Perkins Engines, and in '95 it decided to go pro. That was a real tough decision to give that job up. Keith Barwell at Northampton Saints, what a guy. And he openly says he didn't go in it for them, and he just wanted to move the club forward and other bits and pieces. And how many of the owners can be honest with like that? And that, I look back in rose-tinted glasses, but it must be so difficult for a player to go out and do stuff and put these days, it's maybe not as nasty in terms of things going on, but the contacts and the other bits and pieces are frigging brutal.
Yeah.
I mean, they're phenomenally fit athletes. They are ridiculously hard contacts. And, you're asking people, and they say, oh, yeah, they get paid decent money. Well, they do, but your life as a rugby player is not that long, unless you are a freak of nature like Courtney Laws and people like that who have kept going, or Alan Jones, or those sort of people, who can just keep churning it out.
Yeah. I mean, there's always a limit, isn't there? And hopefully the RFU will step in and do something. I think, me and Tom have spent the last 3 years bashing the RFU on a podcast, so probably not done ourselves any favours.
If they put the effort in, mate, I'll send them a Christmas card. You know what I mean? They put the effort in. I don't understand. Going back to something we spoke about previously, as someone that's never got close to the pro game, how do clubs like Worcester and I know Wasps and Worcester's situations are different, even though they look like they're similar. How can clubs with such a strong academy setup get to a point where they're having to spend a lot of money? Is that just the evolution of rugby?
Well, it is, and you look at certain clubs within the Prem, and I think they used to bring a lot of South Africans because that was cheap money, and maybe the strength of the British pound is changing that in terms of bits and pieces. But you look at what Sale have done. Sale have brought in those players, and they're just ready to go. They'll play a style of game, which is effective at Premiership rugby. If you watch the Quins Northampton game, you look at that. That was a frigging entertaining game. But you've got two sides who are probably going down that committed route of actually, do you know what? We're going to play. Yeah. No matter what, we'll do this. We'll sling the ball around. We'll do that. And it's great to watch. I also enjoy watching Leicester, who are probably under Steve Borthwick going down the other end, going back to old school Leicester, where we're going to go. We'll be hard up front. We'll go around the corner, and we'll still play. It's horses for courses, really. But your banks book, if you want to go up higher in the Premiership, is probably going to be a little bit more pragmatic in terms of playing the right areas, risk adverse. Be hard, be tough, win your set piece. So, don't get me wrong, I'd love to be doing that at Oundle, to go.
And the brand of rugby is getting better in the English Premier, going from the kick and clap, which we used to have a few years ago, to seeing Quinn and people like that just going, like you said, let the lads play, and that's what's happening.
Yeah, I think I can almost watch Premiership rugby again now. There was a good few years where I refused to watch it because I was bored of kicking. The only time I like kicking is when I'm doing it. So,
saved by a true 8 and second row. Before
when I first got going, I was picked up by a lad called Jeff Wright-Dougal, who was I think he played maybe sort of 400 games or so. And I think I kicked a ball in the game, and he said, if I ever see you stop kicking balls, kicking heads, start kicking heads. I was like, I'm not sure quite. It was a different brand of rugby in those days. But,
yeah, massively.
I remember getting threatened by Glenn Delaney in. It was a second team game, so I'd only been 17. It had been one of my first senior games of rugby, and it just kind of like the ball just fell, and so I just caught it on the half volley. So I used to play football before I played rugby. Caught it on the half volley from about around 10-metre line. And it landed sort of on their 5-metre line, and our winger got to it and scored. So I'm obviously running around celebrating like I've got the assist. And he's like, sub me straight away.
George should never kick a
Took
ball.
me off, told me never to kick the ball ever again on a rugby pitch where he's in charge, and then put me back on for the last 20 minutes.
Amazing. JP, just before we let you go, Phil mentioned it at the start. We hope you're going to have at least one story for us. We thought we'd move away from this when we started this new season up, but have you got a favourite rugby tour story or rugby drink story?
To be honest, I've been quite lucky. I've met quite a few lads who are pretty loose, so it's there's quite a few kicking around. I mean, in fairness, I probably don't want to speak about Foxy, Darren Fox, who's currently there. But he was, don't let his alter ego out in a nightclub and stuff like that. So you have to be very careful with Foxy. But I kind of remember when we were on the European Cup winning year in 2000, and we were playing in Grenoble, and we beat Grenoble in it was a bit of a tight game. I don't think they'd lost at home for a long while. It was quite a bit spicy old game, and then obviously we all went out on the smash afterwards. And I was with a South African lad called Gary Pagel, who's our loose head prop, and he was a hell of a player, World Cup winner, incredible. And just being out on the beers with him, getting loose, and we went to this nightclub. I think it must have been owned by one of the players' dads, and all their lads were there. I can't remember what happened, but all of a sudden it's gone absolutely bonkers. The place has gone off. There's all sorts of things. We were actually blind drunk, and there's dogs in there, and John Doms have come in with sticks and stuff like that. And I remember him just grabbing me, just holding over me. He's getting whacked, and he's not winching at all. I don't know whether it's from back in the days in South Africa and stuff like that, but he just dragged me out of the club, and as a young kid, fairly youngish, but threw me out and looked after me. And you forget about those sort of stories when you're coming through the game of the lads who you've played with, have done bits and pieces. I'm sure Eggie's got kind of loads of stories of lads who look after you as you're going out and doing stuff. And I remember, I will talk about Foxy a little bit. I remember sitting when he was coming through his academy, just sitting in nightclubs, grabbing hold of his collar, pulling him back, steering away, and stuff like that.
Maybe we'll have to do a joint effort of you and Foxy on one podcast together. And, let loose in private.
That one might not go out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, we'll add you to the list of people who want on the live pod, because at least it's only a small select people that get to hear it. JP, thanks for coming on, mate.
Right.
I said I know it's short notice, but it's been a pleasure to chat to you. And good luck for the rest of the season.
And you boys, well done.
So that was JP. JP, thank you for coming on, mate. It was a real pleasure to talk to you. As you can see, everyone, it is only me on the outro. Yet again, that is my fault. It's not Wi-Fi this time. It's just got busy diaries. Clearly, me and Phil shouldn't leave an outro until Friday evening, considering he's got 2 kids and wife, and I'm a pisshead. Next week, we've got a lad called Owen coming on from Wellingborough. It's going to be really good to chat to him about what's going on there at his club, how their season's been going so far. And over the weeks, we've got some really good guests lined up. Some of them that you'll have seen on social media as well. Some of them you'll have seen playing past and present. So that's really, really good. So yeah, keep an eye out. Next week, we will do our first proper Midlands rugby roundup. Bit of a tongue twister there. Sometimes we might miss your club out because there's fucking loads of clubs in the Midlands, but we're going to try and cover as much as we possibly can next week. Midlands clubs playing in leagues which aren't in the Midlands anymore, we will try and touch on you where possible, but obviously slightly difficult when we've got to cover all of the Midlands leagues anyway. But remember, we are now the Midlands Rugby Podcast. We want to see our pod grow across the Midlands. We already have had a lot more interaction on social media, but pass the pod over across your rugby clubs, pass the pod around your pubs. I'm struggling to speak today, but it's definitely worth getting people on board. The more people on board, the more interesting guests we get, speaking to people from different clubs at different levels around the Midlands, and hopefully we can turn into a proper pod. And then each live pod we do will get bigger and bigger and bigger, and then hopefully we'll all get to meet up for a beer at some point shortly. But for now, share the podcast on Instagram, on your rugby club's Instagrams, tell your mates about it, talk about it in the pub, tag us in your try-lights, tag us in your content, and we'd like to speak to you soon. See you later.